Hello everyone, welcome to the third law of leadership by John Maxwell, the law of process. Leadership is like investing, IT compounds. Becoming a leader is a lot like investing successfully in the stock market. If your hope is to make a fortune in a day, you're not going to be successful. What matters most is what you do day by day over the long haul. My friend Tag Short maintains that the secret of our success is found in our daily agenda. If you continually invest in your leadership development, letting your assets compound, the inevitable result is growth over time. Leadership is something a person either possesses or doesn't. Although it's true that some people are born with greater natural gifts than others, the ability to lead is really a collection of skills, nearly all of which can be learned and improved. But that process doesn't happen overnight. Leadership is complicated. It has many facets: respect, experience, emotional strength, people skills, discipline, vision, momentum, timing, the list goes on. As you can see, many factors that come into play in leadership are intangible. That's why leaders require so much seasoning to be effective. Leaders are learners. In a study of 90 top leaders from a variety of fields, leadership experts Warren Bennis and Bert Nanus made a discovery about the relationship between growth and leadership. It is the capacity to develop and improve their skills that distinguishes leaders from their followers. Successful leaders are learners. And the learning process is ongoing, a result of self-discipline and perseverance. The goal each day must be to get a little better, to build on the previous day's progress. The 4 phases of leadership growth. Whether you do or don't have great natural ability for leadership, your development and progress will probably occur according to the following 4 phases. Phase 1. I don't know what I don't know. Most people fail to recognize the value of leadership. They believe that leadership is only for a few, for the people at the top of the corporate ladder. They have no idea of the opportunities they're passing up when they don't learn to lead. This point was driven home for me when a college president shared with me that only a handful of students signed up for a leadership course offered by the school. Why? Only a few thought of themselves as leaders. If they had known that leadership is influence, and that in the course of each day most individuals usually try to influence at least 4 other people, their desire might have been sparked to learn more about the subject. It's unfortunate because as long as a person doesn't know what he doesn't know, he doesn't grow. Phase 2. I know what I don't know. Usually at some point in life, we are placed in a leadership position only to look around and discover that no one is following us. That's when we realize that we need to learn how to lead. And of course, that's when it's possible for the process to start. English Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli wisely commented, "To be conscious that you are ignorant of the facts is a great step to knowledge." That's what happened to me when I took my first leadership position in 1969. I had captained sports teams all my life and had been the student government president in college, so I already thought I was a leader. But when I tried to lead people in the real world, I found out the awful truth. That prompted me to start gathering resources and learning from them. I also had another idea. I wrote to the top 10 leaders in my field and offered them $100 for a half hour of their time so that I could ask them questions. That was quite a sum for me in 1969. For the next several years, my wife, Margaret, and I planned every vacation around where those people lived. If a great leader in Cleveland said yes to my request, then that year we vacationed in Cleveland so that I could meet him. And my idea really paid off. Those men shared insights with me that I could have learned no other way. Phase 3. I grow and know, and it starts to show. When you recognize your lack of skill and begin the daily discipline of personal growth in leadership, exciting things start to happen. A while back I was teaching a group of people in Denver, and in the crowd I noticed a really sharp 19-year-old named Brian. For a couple of days, I watched as he eagerly took notes. I talked to him a few times during breaks. When I got to the part of the seminar where I teach the law of process, I asked Brian to stand up so that I could talk while everyone listened. I said, "Brian, I've been watching you here, and I'm very impressed with how hungry you are to learn and glean and grow. I want to tell you a secret that will change your life." Everyone in the whole auditorium seemed to lean forward. I believe that in about 20 years, you can be a great leader. I want to encourage you to make yourself a lifelong learner of leadership. Read books, listen to tapes regularly, and keep attending seminars. And whenever you come across a golden nugget of truth or a significant quote, file it away for the future. It's not going to be easy, I said. But in 5 years, you'll see progress as your influence becomes greater. In 10 years, you'll develop a competence that makes your leadership highly effective. And in 20 years, when you're only 39 years old, if you've continued to learn and grow, others will likely start asking you to teach them about leadership. And some will be amazed. They'll look at each other and say, "How did he suddenly become wise?" Brian, you can be a great leader, but it won't happen in a day. Start paying the price now. What's true for Brian is also true for you. Start developing your leadership today, and someday you will experience the effects of the law of process. Phase 4, I simply go, because of what I know. When you're in Phase 3, you can be pretty effective as a leader, but you have to think about every move you make. However, when you get to Phase 4, your ability to lead becomes almost automatic. And that's when the payoff is larger than life. But the only way to get there is to obey the law of process and pay the price. To lead tomorrow, learn today. Leadership is developed daily, not in a day. That is the reality dictated by the law of process. Benjamin Disraeli asserted, "The secret of success in life is for a man to be ready for his time when it comes." What a person does on a disciplined, consistent basis gets him ready, no matter what the goal. Basketball legend Larry Bird became an outstanding free throw shooter by practicing 500 shots each morning before he went to school. Demosthenes of ancient Greece became the greatest orator by reciting verses, with pebbles in his mouth and speaking over the roar of the waves at the seashore, and he did it despite having been born with a speech impairment. The same dedication is required for you to become a great leader. The good news is that your leadership ability is not static. No matter where you're starting from, you can get better. That's true even for people who have stood on the world stage of leadership. While most presidents of the United States reach their peak while in office, others continue to grow and become better leaders afterward, such as former President Jimmy Carter. Some people questioned his ability to lead while in the White House. But in recent years, Carter's level of influence has continually increased. His high integrity and dedication in serving people through Habitat for Humanity and other organizations have made his influence grow. And now he has been recognized in Mali, where he was knighted for his work eradicating guinea worm disease. People now are truly impressed with his life. Fighting your way up. There is an old saying, champions don't become champions in the ring, they are merely recognized there. That's true. If you want to see where someone develops into a champion, look at his daily routine. Former heavyweight champ Joe Frazier stated, "You can map out a fight plan or a life plan. But when the action starts, you're down to your reflexes. That's where your road work shows. If you cheated on that in the dark of the morning, you're getting found out now under the bright lights." Boxing is a good analogy for leadership development because it is all about daily preparation. Even if a person has natural talent, he has to prepare and train to become successful. One of this country's greatest leaders was a fan of boxing, President Theodore Roosevelt. In fact, one of his most famous quotes uses a boxing analogy: "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Roosevelt, a boxer himself, was the ultimate man of action. Not only was he an effective leader, but he was the most flamboyant of all U.S. presidents. British historian Hugh Brogan described him as the ablest man to sit in the White House since Lincoln, the most vigorous since Jackson, the most bookish since John Quincy Adams. A man of action, TR, which was Roosevelt's nickname, is remembered as an outspoken man of action and proponent of the vigorous life. While in the White House, he was known for regular boxing and judo sessions, vigorous horseback rides, and long, strenuous hikes. A French ambassador who visited Roosevelt used to tell about the time that he accompanied the president on a walk through the woods. When the two men came to the banks of a stream that was too deep to cross by foot, TR stripped off his clothes and expected the dignitary to do the same so that they could swim to the other side. Nothing was an obstacle to Roosevelt. At different times in his life, Roosevelt was a cowboy in the Wild West, an explorer and big game hunter, and a rough-riding cavalry officer in the Spanish-American War. His enthusiasm and stamina seemed boundless. As the vice presidential candidate in 1900, he gave 673 speeches and traveled 20,000 miles while campaigning for President McKinley. And years after his presidency, while preparing to deliver a speech in Milwaukee, Roosevelt was shot in the chest by a would-be assassin. With a broken rib and a bullet in his chest, Roosevelt insisted on delivering his one-hour speech before allowing himself to be taken to the hospital. Roosevelt started slow. Of all the leaders this nation has ever had, Roosevelt was one of the toughest, both physically and mentally. But he didn't start that way. America's cowboy president was born in Manhattan to a prominent wealthy family. As a child, he was puny and very sickly. He had debilitating asthma, possessed very poor eyesight, and was painfully thin. His parents weren't sure he would survive. When he was 12, young Roosevelt's father told him, "You have the mind, but you have not the body, and without the help of the body the mind cannot go as far as it should. You must make the body." And make it he did. He lived by the law of process. TR began spending time every day building his body as well as his mind. And he did that for the rest of his life. He worked out with weights, hiked, ice skated, hunted, rode horseback, and boxed. In later years, Roosevelt assessed his progress, admitting that as a child he was nervous and timid. Yet, he said, from reading of the people I admired, and from knowing my father, I had a great admiration for men who were fearless and who could hold their own in the world, and I had a great desire to be like them. By the time TR graduated from Harvard, he was like them, and he was ready to tackle the world of politics. No overnight success. Roosevelt didn't become a great leader overnight either. His road to the presidency was one of slow, continual growth. As he served in various positions, ranging from New York City Police Commissioner to President of the United States, he kept learning and growing. He improved himself, and in time he became a strong leader. That was further evidence that he lived by the law of process. Roosevelt's list of accomplishments is remarkable. Under his leadership, the United States emerged as a world power. He helped the country develop a first-class navy. He saw that the Panama Canal was built. He negotiated peace between Russia and Japan, winning a Nobel Peace Prize in the process. And when people questioned TR's leadership, since he had become president when McKinley was assassinated, he campaigned and was re-elected by the largest majority of any president up to his time. Ever the man of action, when Roosevelt completed his term as president in 1909, he immediately traveled to Africa, where he led a scientific expedition sponsored by the Smithsonian Institution. A few years later, in 1913, he co-led a group to explore the uncharted river of doubt in Brazil. It was a great learning adventure he said he could not pass up. It was my last chance to be a boy, he later admitted. He was 55 years old. On January 6, 1919, at his home in New York, Theodore Roosevelt died in his sleep. Then VP Marshall said, death had to take him sleeping, for if Roosevelt had been awake, there would have been a fight. When they removed him from his bed, they found a book under his pillow. Up to the very last, TR was still striving to learn and improve himself. He was still practicing the law of process. If you want to be a leader, the good news is that you can do it. Everyone has the potential, but it isn't accomplished overnight. It requires perseverance. And you absolutely cannot ignore the law of process. Leadership doesn't develop in a day. It takes a lifetime,